Hey friends, Ian Khan at the Milken Global Conference here with my friend Anna Kreacic. Anna, you are an incredible person who's done so much, you're doing so much, and your story is inspiring. You're working at multiple levels. You're the chief knowledge officer, you're managing different things, you're leading think tanks. Tell us who you are right now at this moment in time, and what do you do as an organization as well?
Well, at this moment in time, I'm just excited to be here with you, having a good conversation and catching up. Milken is overwhelming in a good sense, like a lot of great conversations. But right now, I think, as you can imagine, like we're facing a very unique time. It's a tremendous amount of uncertainty, right? A lot of macro disruptions, a lot of things happening in the world at the same time that I think we have to manage personally, but also businesses have to manage, and we have to manage as leaders professionally. Our think tank, the Oliver Wyman Forum, is really like a platform for senior leaders across public and private sector that get together and help debate and hopefully shape answers to big issues shaping the future.
Yeah.
So I'm spending a lot of time on like macro issues, what's happening in the world. The way I see it, like 5 big revolutions, they're all happening simultaneously, and maybe a decade or two ago, any one of them would have been really big and really disruptive.
Yeah.
But now, we've got geopolitics and all of the things that come from that, wars on 3 continents, etc. Economic nationalism, people think it's just started now. It actually hasn't. It's been on the rise for a while. And we see all of the disruptions related to that. AI, enough said.
Yeah.
Changing demographics, and then really like a lot of systemic vulnerabilities from, climate, the impacts on losses related to that, and then, how does that manifest with everything going on? So with all of that, I kind of try to study humans and understand them both as customers and as employees.
Yeah.
How are they changing? And specifically, like, how is all of that shaping them? And where do we go from here?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love how you frame these into the 5 major issues that we are dealing with. If you had to choose one and put it at the top of the list, what would that be? Like, this is the first one that needs to be solved.
Look, right now, everyone's solving for the immediate short term, right? So a couple of years ago, everyone said AI. Even last year, everyone was talking about AI. Still everyone here talking about AI.
Yeah.
But, the tariff situation over, right, the last, since, Liberation Day, I think has been a top priority for people to solve, and businesses to solve. And I would say that, the leaders in the businesses that dealt with thinking about how to build resilience in their companies during COVID, were in a spot where, now they were already dual sourcing, they were multi-sourcing, they were thinking about how to build resilience in their supply chain, and they're kind of continuing that effort now. But, where I see still big gaps, if I take a little bit of a longer term view than just the short term of what everybody is dealing with, is, we have big gaps between where executives are versus I think where many of the employees are, or even where brands are versus where the consumers are. And a lot of that is just dictated by just change in the world, some of it technology driven. And so, the stat that I like to throw out is, because, we just closed our global quarterly survey, is almost 40% of Gen Z would prefer an AI manager to a human one.
Okay. That's interesting, yeah.
Like, if you let that sink in for a little bit, how do we get here? How do we get to the point that I would rather, right, have an AI to coach me, guide me, where I would ask them questions, than see you as a human and gain from your experience and your knowledge, and where does that leave us in the future? So I think, I think we have to look at both the immediate issues and a little bit the long-term issues.
I somehow understand what people are saying, and if they have a preference that AI teaches you. And we can get into this whole discussion that, okay, who has more experience now? You know, is it the AI that crunched trillions of bytes of data and put it into a machine learning model and now it knows the combination of every lock in the universe? Or is it the person who's a different kind of a teacher, right? There's these ethical debates now coming up. And those ethical debates somehow need to connect with the needs of the future and how young generations today learn what professions they will have. Are they still going to become a doctor and go into the medical system and learn for 10 years, right? Like, there are all these ethical dilemmas now that
100%.
everybody's facing,
100%.
from kids to families to what have you. I'm generally a positive, hopeful person that the world has to go towards a better place. But you mentioned tariffs, and I'm just being very open in our conversation because that's what we're doing. With the tariffs, is it a short-term tactical, strategy that the administration has? Or is it a long-term, we don't know many things, but we're all hoping for a positive outcome on both sides, on all sides.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that thinking going where it's actually giving us a lot of stress, and we're like, hey, we don't know where things are going. From the think tank, you also said you work a lot on kind of the knowledge management, the helping understand the education and where that is going.
Yeah.
Let's talk education. What is education about? What's your definition of education? Is it skills, knowledge, or experience?
I mean, look, I think it's all three, and it depends what sort of education and where you're getting your education from a little bit. But, tying that in back to what you were talking about, like the questions on ethics and where does it go, I think that's where a lot of the gaps are, right? Like, how do you tie in? A lot of the conversation happens to be taken up by, what we call big AI, right? Like, what are countries doing? How are they competing? What are the big technology companies, doing? How are they competing? But the smaller applications of how do you and I learn, or I don't know if you have kids. I have 3 kids.
Yeah, I've got 2.
2 Gen Z and 1 Gen Alpha, right? How do they learn? And how do they learn in a way that is still going to enable them to think critically in the future, rather than just, basically regurgitate what the AI is telling them in a way that they're actually not only not learning, they're not learning critical thinking, but they're fundamentally going backwards from where we would expect them to be. And I think educators today are struggling with that. I met with the leadership of the school where my children go, and they said, look, they also struggle because they fundamentally have teachers who are deep in and understand it and are using it in their classrooms to those who never want to see it. So they're worried about not only just what ethics what are the ethical implications, how do they make sure the outcomes are good, how do they get their teachers on board, what do they allow, so it's not just policing. And they're dealing with that day to day. And I feel like those questions, we're not moving fast enough on answering some of those, because we have a smorgasbord of every educational institution or college or teacher in some case having their own approach. And so how do we think about what are the good societal outcomes that will come from AI that we can imagine? And then how do we move everybody towards that, whether it's, skills and retraining that you need in teachers or in my team and my workforce and myself, versus what we're teaching that next generation. And so it is all of them, because it depends a little bit on who you're talking about.
Yeah. And do you know what? Human personality is such an incredible thing. And our personalities, our experiences, our values, they impact this decision making so much to the level that, how much screen time should you give your kids, as an example, right?
Yeah.
And my thing for my kids is that when I was your age, yes, you know that, right?
Of course.
When I was your age, we had one TV between, all the neighborhoods. And
I'm sure your kids love it when you start with that.
Yeah. So we go back into our own history and our own life history.
Yes.
Should we use AI to help us make decisions faster and somehow be like, okay, AI, what should we do in this situation? Here are my parameters, here are my challenges, here's what I need to do, tell me what I should do. Should we do that to make decisions faster?
I think it depends on I think it depends a little bit on what the decision is. In some high-risk applications, you probably don't want AI to be the only thing or one making that decision. You also have to think about it, should the human be checking the AI? Because if the human checks the AI and the AI is right 99 times, the 100th time it's wrong, the human's going to miss it, most likely.
Yeah.
So I think we have to fundamentally rethink not only where do we plug AI in to help us be better, smarter, faster, but how do we restructure the checks and balances to reduce the risks in high-risk situations. But for some things, absolutely, why not?
I just had a breakthrough. I had a really big breakthrough that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I think what we need in the future is a governing council within an organization, or some kind of committee, a governing council of leadership that actually votes on the decision that AI is proposing to take. So we put all this information in AI. AI says, do this, buy that, sell that, make this product. And this leadership council goes back and says, okay, folks, we've asked AI what we should do, and this is what it said to us. Let's vote, should we do it or no? So we get AI to accelerate that decision making, but then we have a check on, is it a go or a no-go, to protect ourselves from any decision which is big for an organization or personally as well, right? Even as a family.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about then using AI at the highest levels of decision making.
Yes.
And so two things, right? One, like Oliver Wyman put in place its own, I guess in some ways a shadow board. Yep. We have a global leadership team council that really was put together many years ago now. Our CEO put it together of younger employees who would see any proposal that the CEO and his leadership team were making a decision on, and they would provide the input. And the rationale for that's been incredibly successful. And the rationale for that was partially because, many, whether it's executive rooms or boardrooms, tend to have senior people who are significantly older,
of course,
and not as connected to the younger generation or as connected to the new emerging technologies or whatever is happening on the ground. So that's been incredibly useful, and many companies have done that. And I think your question is parallel, which is not should AI be making the decision, or for those strategic decisions, should we just be relying on AI as a recommendation, but should we also ask AI on whatever we think we should be doing as the next strategic move to help us understand where my exposure is, what the priorities should be, and where we should go? And for that, absolutely. And I would say there are a number of executives who are already using it. So when they go talk to their CEO, they run their own recommendations through it, and they say, what am I missing? How can I improve my recommendations? And that's a different that's a different type of reliance on AI. Of course. In terms of improving what you're doing versus just making a decision.
Totally. No, I love it. Last question.
Yeah.
If you had a magic wand, what would you make true or happen in the next 5 years?
Look, right now my mind is on just the unprecedented amount of uncertainty and volatility that is not only the last few months, but really has been building up in the world over a period of time. And some of the macro trends that we're seeing are things that, were true, that are decades, right, of patterns that are reversing themselves, whether, and you can pick any topic. So macro-wise, what I would love to do, magic wand, is to reduce a little bit that uncertainty and volatility, because fundamentally for, businesses and economies to thrive and to be able to make investment decisions and to be able to move forward, you need to know kind of where the playing and how the playing field is settling. And that playing field has been in movement for a long time now, and that movement is accelerating. So it's multi-year in nature. If I can have a second magic wand, I go back to thinking about, like, we both have kids, right? What is our future? What is their future? And how do we really improve societal outcomes? And I think for that, we have to start thinking a little bit beyond just the business answers and not how do I use AI to improve the strategic decision making of an executive team, but like, how do I use, I think Ajay Banga from the World Bank called it small AI, not big AI, AI to improve, the outcome of a crop yield for a farmer, or, the outcome of, a retail business, a retail small business is that somebody has just set up.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like, those are what connect us on a local level.
Yeah.
And those are, I think, what build human connectivity so that we can understand each other better. And right now, like, there's a lot of misunderstandings in the world.
Yeah. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us. I love this conversation and catching up. And it's such a pleasure to hear these ideas from you, and they resonate so well with what I believe. So
what's next for you?
So Undisrupted came out in February this year. This is a culmination of the last 5 years of my work, in which I talk about the role of emerging tech and where it's going and the impact it'll have on different industries. And I introduce a score called the Future Readiness score. And really, if you have no idea on what's happening in the world, somebody should read it, and it'll give them a really great idea on where are things going. And
that's great. So what's your magic wand?
Oh gosh, it's such a my magic wand could be, I would say that we somehow eliminate suffering from the world and its different forms of suffering. There's political suffering, there's financial suffering, there's healthcare suffering, and somehow level the field a little bit, reduce the suffering a little bit across the board, and then we tackle everything else together as a global community. I don't know.
And we'll need funds to do that, and we'll need to get along to do that. So all of that is necessary.
We will. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.